welcome to Chapter 3 of Chapter and Curse, where we discuss this novel, the Malazan Book of the Fallen, Gardens of the Moon, the first in the series by Steven Erikson. Once again, the same four people, myself, joined by Adil, Gareth, and by Alistair. They are all reading the novel for the first time. I'm reading it for, I believe, the third time. And we're giving different perspectives on the various chapters. We hope you will follow along, do the same, drop comments once the video drops, and you can say your say, tell us we're getting it wrong if we are, or if you agree with what we say, or the insights such as they are that we have, then feel free to let us know, and we will respond. And we appreciate all the comments we've got so far. So straight into chapter 3. And now we go back to our friend Perrin, and we find him on board a ship heading towards the war zone. It starts with this chapter. I think goes back to the format of previous chapters, where we get these little kind of short cut scenes, as opposed to the longer, more solid chapter 2. Here we go back to this kind of almost video style, where we get these little short, almost cinematic kind of scenes, where the first one being on board the ship, your friend Gareth Topper arrives, teleports in by Warren, and basically gives our man his instructions. It's almost what feels like one of those, this is your mission should you choose to accept it, except he doesn't get the option not to accept it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when Topper arrives and sort of tells him the plan, they're going to great lengths to sort of to keep his transport, I don't know, secret or on the down low, because instead of arriving by ship, they have to take these other what are they?
Yeah, calls.
Yeah.
So that's right, and Topper is a dick as usual. I can't imagine this. I just imagine this guy dressed all in green, like some kind of
And he has a fat moan about having to find the ship through the
how
warren.
hard it is to use a warren and hit a moving ship and blah blah blah.
But now, is Topper an assassin though? Is he part of the Claw?
Yeah, he's a member of the Claw, which is the sort of official Imperial assassins that were.
Is he not like the main Claw?
He may be. He may be fairly high up. I don't know if he's the main guy, but he's.
Because so the warrens, anyone can use the warren then. You don't just have to be a mage.
Well, yeah, he in the first chapter or the second chapter, the first chapter, he used transport. He and Perrin used the Imperial warren to get to the Emperors. So I'm assuming it's the same one here. He may not be a mage per se, but he's described as half Teist Andy, which I hadn't even noticed until I read this chapter. Now they're the sorcerers.
Yeah,
the elves.
Yeah, the sorcerers elves.
Yeah.
The sorcerers cave trolls who are described in the previous chapter. And we learned that Perrin's basically going to go and take over control of the Bridge or Whiskey Jack's squad. And you just get a sense that it's a typical war movie trope in many ways. The young officer, green, maybe of noble birth, now going to try and come take control of this a whole squad of actual people who've been fighting for years.
There is actually sorry, Al. There is actually one of the things I did note was a quote from the book here about, like, in that section that I liked, where it says, he had the stink of nobility about him like a perfumed cloud. And for the past hour, he'd just been sitting there, hands in lap, shoulders hunched, watching like some stupid cow, the frenzied activity swirling around him. Though he ranked captain, not a single soldier even bothered to salute him. The stink wasn't subtle. I love it. The stink wasn't subtle.
Yeah. But you know what I liked about that intro? Because obviously you think, he's like that guy you meet in chapter 1 of Game of Thrones. You know, the idiot who takes the two rangers.
Waymar Royce.
Yeah, takes them out, and you just think, what a knob end. Yeah. But what was clever about this was, as soon as they make eye contact, Topper realizes, okay, there's more to this guy than meets the eye. But what I liked about the way that he presented it, he starts with the captain, and then only when you read further do you realize that the bridge burners have had a nasty habit of captains dying.
The last one was garroted, as I understand.
About 2 hours
yeah.
after admonishing the troops, you took a long walk off a short plank. But what I did enjoy was the fact that it didn't start the other way around. So normally, if a normal writer would go, "Oh, the bridge burners can't keep a captain for more than a month," and then you jump to Perrin, and then obviously you make the connection as the reader. Oh, okay, so he's going to go do that. It's like, no, dude, you start with this, and then only halfway through do you realize, oh, okay, this is what's going to happen to him. He's actually going to.
The context comes later.
Yeah,
that was quite good. Yeah, but you're right. Though, this chapter did feel a bit more like the first one. It did jump around quite a bit, whereas chapter 2 was solidified.
I must say I enjoyed this chapter, and I think it's because you got a lot more sort of character insight than previously. But maybe it's just because that's what I was looking for. But I do know you do know to Topper. Basically, there's all this talk that the Empress believes that Sorry's like corrupted all of the bridge burners, or even the whole army, or something like that against her, which just sounded very far fetched to me. I mean, it was like a weird kind of paranoid thing for someone to think.
But even in chapter 2, though, I mean, Tattersales picks up that there's something wrong with her.
Yes,
because she puts wards. I think she puts wards around her or something, and then Sorry even comments about it.
Yeah,
why did you stop me approaching? Something like that. But then it makes me think, well, then why doesn't the Empress just take her out? I mean, she's literally throwing legions at a floating rock. Why does she not just, get rid of it?
There's a lot that doesn't make sense. Let's say that, and then, Perrin, even Topper leaves, and then Perrin starts having second thoughts, like, am I doing the right thing here? Am I working for the right people? Starts having these crises of confidence. And it reminded me a little bit, this kind of arriving to the war zone by boat. It reminded me a little bit of Apocalypse Now, with the new captain coming in to a world that he doesn't understand, because it's a reality that all these soldiers have been living for a long time, and it's like what he expects is just not going to be the case. And I do know that Erikson has read a lot of accounts of Vietnam, and a lot of the Malazan soldier interactions are based on those kind of books that he's done a lot of reading in.
Do you know which books you read?
I'm not sure. I'm sure you can find out. But...
Yeah, I'll check it out.
That's cool. You get a lot of that in this chapter, like the soldiers on their downtime, almost.
Yes, yeah. You find a lot of that in the books. I'll be honest. It's not my favorite part of the novels. Some people find it that they say that's the best. But for them, there's just the sort of downtime soldier interactions.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
Or what they really like about it, because it feels kind of realistic. I don't know.
And different.
I'm not a huge fan of military fiction or military fantasy.
But surely, Rob.
Yeah.
I mean, is this not by definition just like a behemoth of military fantasy?
It is, but it's also a lot of other things too. So, but I mean, I always find that the chapters that I enjoy the most are the sort of, I love the ones about the mages. I love the sort of human interaction chapters, but the sort of soldiers grumbling and cussing, which because their backs hurt and the officer's an arsehole. While it may be very realistic, it's just not my favorite part.
That's also where we see the Seven Cities connection, because he chooses a horse with a saddle. The saddle piece is bent forward.
Yes.
And he mentions the Seven Cities, and that's where I picked up on that.
Yeah, and he was mentioning in the first video about Perrin's obviously got a background in horses, so he knows exactly what's what when it comes to.
Yeah, I think his family was a horse rearing lot.
And we then get this. I think some of you guys were just talking about it. This Gareth was referencing it when he arrives and he's got to meet this agent, and we get the scene told completely from the agent's point of view, seeing Perrin sitting on the dock. And I think here we get a real insight into there's some clues here from Steven Erikson's writing that should be a warning.
Yeah.
And that is inaccurate narrative, but point of view narrative.
Yeah.
Because you get this guy who's clearly a short ass, who immediately hates Perrin because he's tall.
Yeah.
And then he describes the scene about how tall. I don't think Perrin is that tall. But he's taller than this guy. And you get this very prejudiced, very inaccurate short scene. And I think there's a big warning in the scene about reading the rest of the novel. And that just because you like a character doesn't mean their point of view is accurate. And it's, I mean, this is obviously sort of a bit of an extreme example. It's just a random, I mean, there's no reason why you would have told this. I don't know why you would tell the scene from the point of view of a random character anyway, to be honest. But you could just as easily have told you how Perrin was feeling sitting there isolated and no one saluting him. But we jump away to some random guy who just thinks, what an arsehole. I hate tall people, you know.
Yeah.
And he's an officer and he's perfumed and screw him, you know. I mean, he's just an unpleasant guy, you know.
But then he says he's got to, if I remember correctly, he's got to ride to the Pale, which will take him, 2 years?
Yeah, well, he tells him he's going to go by call. No, he tells him he's going to go by these things called calls, and Perrin assumes he's talking about a land animal, and it's not. It's actually a thing that flies.
Okay, yeah,
and that's why I think Perrin ends. He says so much for intelligence reports, because he has no idea. Like, this is how the guys out here actually
get around.
It's mad.
And I found the scene weird. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, it's stuck in my head in terms of the way it's done. But it just seemed to me odd that we get a perspective from a random third-party guy.
I don't know what to expect.
Yeah, what is odd at this point?
At this stage, I mean, I've had pages of weather vanes and massive, like, fully detailed battles. I mean, this is only chapter 3, and like a lot's gone on. It's like the first 2 chapters is like a book on its own before you even.
It's interesting you say that. One of the people in the comments made this sort of suggestion, and I think it actually makes a lot of sense. Is they say that the first book should almost be read like each chapter as an individual short story.
Yeah.
And
that made a lot of sense.
It does. It really helped me a lot to sort of just let's not try and think about too much about how this connects to what came before or next. It's just I can make those connections later on, maybe like a second read through. Let's just enjoy it, for what it is.
Yeah, I think I need to do that as well.
It's actually an interesting approach.
It is, yeah, because it lends itself to that, because each one's got its little arc.
Exactly. I mean, chapter 2 before this was just an awesome little short story, taken even in isolation. It tells the story of the Battle of Pale,
But one thing I'm physically finding problematic with the book. What copy have you guys got? The Bantam.
Bantam.
Yeah, so we've all got the same one. But I don't know about you, but my words, the print's slightly squiff, so you've really got to peel that book like open hard.
Oh yeah, go deep into the gutter.
Yeah.
Mine seems to be okay actually.
No, because I'm having to read it at different angles because I can't read the last section. Yeah, I'm like this. And it's annoying me because there's so much going on.
Yeah.
I can't even like sit and just turn the page laconically. I've just got to actually get in there and pull this whole thing apart to be able to read the inside bit, which is extremely annoying. So kids, don't buy the Bantam.
That's okay. And after that little interlude about what not to buy, the chapter moves on, and we go back to Tattersail now. And we jump back to her post battle, and she's called by the soldiers because that one high mage who survived the battle, he's described as a Toblakai or a Thelaman, which is another type of ethnicity in the world. He's now his lover is one of the mages that got cut to pieces. He's now got her remains in a bag, and he's refusing to allow anybody near it. And this is causing flies and stench, and the whole army camp is it's just a strange scene.
But he's been kneeling there for like 5 days or something. So obviously we know now that the battle's been over for a week nearly. And people are getting sick just because it was on their patrol route. So they reached out to her, which made me feel that she's not, as you said in chapter 2, she's part of the army. She's part of them. I don't think they see much distinction in rank. I don't, because I mean, if they were scared of her or they saw her as like someone who was imposing, they wouldn't have gone to her and said, "Please, can you help us out?" And that in the same breath, she's quick to jump up and say, "What do you need?" And she goes to help them. So you get that sort of camaraderie ship between her and the guys that she's with.
In that scene though, Al, she does say, or there is like a line where she says, just the thought of having to make Tayshrin wait a little longer for her is enough of a reason for her to want to do it.
Yeah.
Like attend to this little errand. So that also says a lot about her attitude
towards the mages, but not towards the soldiers, because she kind of likes them, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I got a sense Tayshrin's kind of come in and he's almost taken command of the whole army, even above Dujek. He's sort of, the Empress is high mage, and I'm sort of taking over here. Like, I'm going to do it my way, kind of thing.
And we saw a bit of that in the previous chapter as well, in that discussion room. He had this air about him, and and it didn't stop them from taking shots at him. Like they still, in his presence, they still were throwing shots at him, which is quite interesting.
Hairlock. He says, like, I don't know why he's staring at the battle map. He can't read a map to save his life.
Yeah.
But she's clearly convinced. I mean, she tells this guy Beladan, look, I mean, Nigel's been murdered by Tayshrin, basically. And he says, no, it's not. She's wrong. He refuses to believe it. And because he talks about Tayshrin gave him permission to raise a burial mound or something to that effect.
But that alludes to what you said in chapter 2 about it seemed that some of the spells weren't coming necessarily from the floating fortress.
Yeah.
They were coming from the grassy knoll. And she's obviously twigged. Obviously, she's had 5 days to digest this, and now she realizes that there's a possible certainty.
Yeah.
That for some reason, and it all ties into the fact that here's this guy, almost unproven, in charge of all of these mages, about to go into one of the biggest battles that they've ever had, and he's just come out of nowhere. So it just feels like, for me, this chapter was like the chessboard has been put down, and now you can see the pieces are slowly starting to move. There's definitely some sort of subplot that's happening with Perrin. That's not coincidence. I don't think. I just didn't get the feeling that was coincidence. That it felt like, and I think she even mentions that captain might have been assassinated on purpose, or one of the guys mentioned that it was assassination on purpose, and then Perrin's coming to take over. And because you met him in the first chapter, you kind of think, oh, okay, there's something up here. So I'm slowly starting to get that vibe, like there's 2 people on either side of the chessboard, and someone's made the first opening gambit.
Well, Tayshrin appears to be the Empress's man. I mean, that's where he appears to be positioned.
But for what end yet, we don't know. Because I mean, it feels a bit counterintuitive. Because if you're the Empress, then you've got access to everyone and everything. But yet she's still trying to play this subterfuge game within the overarching expansion of the empire, which feels to me that she's obviously worried about unknown or unseen forces that she feels that she can't maybe control with her vast legions.
But don't forget, before she was Empress, she was head of the Claw. That was her. I mean, she was Mistress of Assassins, I think, or that was her title or something like that. So she's like she's the head of intelligence, before becoming the Emperor.
And I don't know if it's in this chapter or the last one. I know it's like heavily inferred, but I think in one of these chapters that actually says like outright that Lysine assassinated the former emperor.
That's I mean,
it is known.
They've had an accident, or he's had an accident or something.
A watery grave or something. It's sort of like. Yeah.
These dudes are like the drummers from Spinal Tap. They just die every couple of weeks. It's like another guy.
Yeah, and I mean, we jump around again, because we then go from that scene, which ends with basically Tattersall casting a sort of preservation spell on the corpse, basically to stop it from decomposing further. That's how I understood it.
Yeah, that's what I got from.
And then we go straight to the bridge burners, who's still on the hill outside the city, still like machinating about what's going on and trying to work out who's trying to kill who. And then you have this discussion where, I mean, I think it's just Quick Ben and Kalam and Whiskey Jack and they are basically talking about their last captain being assassinated. And Kalam says, like, the Empress is taking out all the old guard. Whiskey Jack doesn't quite seem to buy it. And they're trying to work out whether Sorry is the one who's murdered their previous captain. So I mean, everyone's sort of looking over their shoulder. It seems, but no one, they're fighting a war, but at the same time, everybody's kind of looking for a knife in the back. It seems.
That's also why I think that they don't sort of like. There's no respect for the hierarchy or the rank. Really, when they talk to each other, they're just a bunch of. No one really trusts anyone, and they'll say whatever because, they don't care anymore.
It's not clear who's looking out for the bridge burners, right? Because they've persisted over the years, despite there being reasons for them to have been disbanded by now. But they continue to be there, and I mean, even though their numbers have dwindled, they still are a factor. So it's interesting. I mean, there must be someone that's looking out for them somewhere in the ranks.
And their whole mission to sort of undermine the walls of Pale, they were basically just sent there just to sort of like be forgotten and slowly.
It seems that way.
Fizzle out. Yeah.
You guys just spend like 7 years digging tunnels, and then we're suddenly going to do a surprise attack, which is going to bring the whole thing down on top of you. It does seem seems very careless.
Almost
serious
as if it was done on purpose.
Yes, but you do get a sense from these interactions, these early interactions amongst the bridge burners, that Whiskey Jack, at least, I mean, he has a lot of reliance on these two, this duo. These two guys from Seven Cities, and they seem to almost finish each other's sentences. And they are Quick Ben, who's the mage, and Kalam, who's the assassin, basically. But he seems to rely a lot on their points of view, even though they probably annoy him a little bit.
It's funny though, because all of them are scared of Sorry though.
Yeah, even
these are like hardcore veterans, and they're still a bit,
Yeah, she gives us the creep
about the 15-year-old.
Yeah. As it turns out, rightly so.
Yeah.
No, she seems to scare everybody. She gives everyone the creeps. But we kind of know why. I mean, we know what happened to her in the first chapter.
Yeah, but I mean, that's all we know.
Yeah, we know she got possessed by something.
By a witch. A tallow witch. Well, that's what we...
And maybe two things. I think she's double possessed.
Yeah, because it definitely feels like it's that Cotillion or whoever in this chapter.
He mentioned Cotillion, and there's these chapters are just littered with clues, and you go back and read epigraphs of the opening chapters, and it's all, it's a very complex puzzle, and it's, I assume deliberately so.
So now she goes from talking to the cleric, because he has that line about the scars on the inside and the scars on the outside, and then she gets a bit pissed with him. She gets a bit snappy with him because he's like all, she's like, sort yourself out, and then she goes to the tent, and then immediately the guy's like, you need to draw the dragon deck.
Oh yeah. That's when she meets with Tayshrin.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, but you also get a sense that she's an expert, because I mean, he's like the Imperial High Mage, and he says, look, can you do it? Can you do it? And I mean, this is the guy. She's just told another mage is responsible for murdering their own guys. And then she basically sits with him and agrees to do one of these readings. I envisage this scene taking place on the battlements of the city, because they look across at some point to where the bridge burners are. But once again, we get the deck of dragons, the second chapter in a row where we get a reading, but we get a sense that Tayshrin is a lot more adept at it than Hairlock is.
Yeah, but I also got the impression that he was scared, almost, of what the reading was going to be. Like, he didn't know. For all his power, he can't see very far, and so he may see her as problematic, but he can't really get rid of her because he kind of needs her, and he needs the skill that she has. And what I thought was cool was the first card up.
Yeah,
because then you're left with the impression when she dealt with Pinocchio because he couldn't hear the spinning coin, that
Yeah.
might have been masked to them, and then when I think she's talking in her head, and then he mentions that name, and she looks at him and she thinks, well, how did he know that? And then he says, oh, but it's the first card. So he too is almost blinded to it as well.
Yeah.
So again, there's more machinations, happening in the background.
Yeah, I mean that once again, I find the deck of dragons to be really enigmatic. I don't fully understand it, but I mean she draws I think the first card she draws is called Orb, and then she refers to it as Judgment and True Sight, whatever that may mean. And then the second card is the Virgin of High House Death, which she immediately believes to be a reference to Sorry, but she doesn't tell Tayshia that. He thinks that card is a misdirect in the draw, like it's someone's put it there to throw off the scent, but she doesn't agree with that at all. And then the third card is the Assassin of High House Shadow.
That's it, with the hound, when they mention the hounds.
Yeah, and she says it's the rope, the patron of assassins.
Yeah.
And she thinks she can hear the howling of hounds.
That's it. And then as soon as I read that, I was like, oh shit, that refers to the first chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you now know, okay, so those two cats are assassins. I mean, obviously they're killing Achilles, but I mean, now it's just been definitively proven. I thought it was quite fun.
The prologue started with an epigraph, which is like a poem from Call to Shadow by somebody called Felison, who was the same name as
Perrin's sister, yeah.
The second verse reads, "The emperor is dead. So too his mastered companion, the rope cut clean." And then there's sorts of other things, but there's clearly a reference there to it. And now she's talking about the rope, master of assassins. And now it gets a bit murky.
Yeah, it's like I said, these 3 chapters alone could be their own book. It's just so much going on.
And interesting, she also says the card for the rope, or the master of assassins, whatever it is. She says, without his companion, Shadow Throne. And she remarks that, and she says that the Shadow Warren is renowned for slipping its boundaries. I thought that's such a lovely line. Well, I don't know if it's her or Tayshia who says it, but it's renowned for slipping its boundaries. I can imagine like a Warren of Shadow would do that.
Is the deck ever explained in greater detail further on?
Sorry, spoiler alert, but no.
Okay, no.
It's hinted at in much more detail, and there's always a correlation between the readings and what happens. But it's a bit like the Warrens. You never get a primer or a manual. Sorry.
No, that's cool. I like it like that.
I do too. Yeah, I also like the
mystery
not being explained. Yeah,
for sure.
I've said it before, but I love the idea of magic being magical and mystical.
Yeah.
Not easily explained even to magic people.
Yeah. Because there's almost an element of it. It's almost like when you play a role-playing game, there's always 2 paths, isn't there? There's always the clerical path, which is all the spells come from the gods, and then there's the magic one. And then this one, it feels a bit like, well, okay, you get your paths you get your magic from wherever it comes.
What Warren you get.
Yeah, but it definitely feels like there's also like a massive, like the gods are involved somehow. They're not like 2 separate streams. It feels like one has potential to influence. It feels like top down. There's a definite influence of the gods in the way that these things all play out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It also, in the same way, Al, it gave me, in a weird way, with the Warrens and all that sort of stuff, a bit of a 40K vibe. With
yeah.
Like this sort of like realm of just emotional energy that people can travel through and draw power from. Yeah, it definitely felt very 40K-ish to me.
Well, so battle scenes seem a little 40K-ish to me as well. Yeah.
Well, they do, because I mean, again, with the legions, I keep on harping on about it, but it does actually feel a bit like that. Space Marines to the slaughter.
Yeah. As you say, Marines were mentioned.
That's also true. Marines were mentioned.
And so I think the last scene, I may be wrong, but as I recall it, the last scene then after we've had the reading of the deck. But before we get there, just that last line, and then reading the deck where they talk about the shadow realm. It's Tayshrin who says, the birth of that bastard realm has always bothered me. Its final shaping is still centuries away. I mean, he gets a sense these guys are talking long-term stuff here. You know what I mean? It's like, there's this realm called the Shadow Realm. Well, its birth has always bothered me. You know? How long have you been musing on it?
In between conquering entire planets, I think these mages have a lot of downtime.
Yeah, probably. And then I think it's in that moment where she observes how Tayshrin responds to her reading and how he doesn't quite see it the way she sees it, that she decides to throw in her lot and go with the bridge burners in whatever they are planning, kind of thing. Because you remember she says she finds a messenger and says, go to Whiskey Jack and tell him the fat lady wants to see you or something like that. It's almost like at that moment she makes a decision. Okay, I'm gonna go with whatever they're going with.
Yeah.
That was a great one. It's the fat lady with the spells wants to talk.
Yeah, that's right. That's the line.
But now, where's Pinocchio in all of this? Is he back in the tent,
well,
or
he's
is
probably
he
still in a tent? I mean, she keep him in a box or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like he really didn't think this plan through very carefully.
Well, that's the thing. I mean,
For someone,
get a sense. You know, you wonder how much he thought it through.
or how much he has control over. Yeah, exactly. You know, once he's there, died like with half a body, he's not really calling the shots anymore.
No, exactly. And the funny thing is that like he's gone from being a human to being like a tiny wooden puppet, and he's still an asshole. It's exactly the same.
And also weirdly unfazed by that change. It's just like, oh well, this is what I am now. Moving along. It's
But again, like it almost feels like the Oracle. Maybe the Dragon deck spoke to him. I mean, obviously we're not going to know because it might have happened off scene. But maybe he knew this was coming. So this was his plan all along.
You did get that sense early on, right? Yeah. I mean, but you got that sense that he had made peace with it and he knew that it was coming, and so that's why you kind of feel like wherever it's going, he's.
Do we just lose a deal?
I think we might have just lost a deal. Oh dear!
You stepped into the warren.
The realm of shadow.
Yeah, right as we were getting towards the upsetting part of the chapter.
Because I mean, it's not like a mage goes to war with a specifically handmade leather bag and a wooden marionette. Like, it's not something you would take with you.
No.
I mean, someone A had to make the bag, B had to fashion the marionette, C give it to the bridge burners, D protect it during an entire battle, E rock up at just the right time with F the right equipment.
Yeah, coincidence? I think not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, this.
But that's the thing. I mean, and also, you know, it's a hell of a thing to do just on a contingency. Just by the way, in case I ever get wiped out in battle,
all of this needs to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Because you never know when I might be fatally wounded and only be able to live long enough to do these few things. In which case, get a marionette.
Yeah.
Get another wizard. You know, make sure that you get to me before I die and bleed out. It doesn't sound like a foolproof.
But I think Adil's drawn the god of load shedding on the dragon deck.
I think so.
Oh dear.
It may well be.
He's load shed out.
Well, maybe we'll have to just go on to the next bit without him, which is the last scene in the chapter, which is kind of an extended scene where Perrin arrives, having traveled overland on one of these things, and now he arrives into the city, and he's coming to take command of this unit. And there's a really great scene where, hey, Adil.
Load strikes again.
Load sharing.
We thought it might have been that. Wow.
So we get the scene where he arrives in the city and now he's trying to find the bridge burners, and he runs into like some surly troop, and she's like, oh, they're all over it, whatever inn they're playing at. And he goes, and there's this slightly awkward scene where they're playing cards, and he's kind of like trying to be part of the group, but not really.
Narc.
Well, this was because I know you always asked for a line that you liked, and this was mine because he's looking for them, and he comes across some female corporal.
Picker.
Yeah. He says, I'm looking for the 9th squad corporal. And she says, why? Are they in trouble again?
Yeah.
And Perrin smiles to himself. Are you the average bridge burner, corporal? All the average ones are dead.
Oh, chef's kiss. It's so
yeah,
good.
that was so good. Like, all the average ones are dead, she said.
I mean, the zingers in this dialogue are second to none.
Yeah.
So good.
But you don't like these parts because that's the soldiery.
No, I don't. I like the witty banter, but I just, when it's grousing about like the latrine duty and the.
And I suppose we've also only read one chapter of it. By the end of 10 of these books, who knows how many fucking reams.
You'll know every marine heavy sapper in the Malazan
all
army.
their dental issues, family
bowel
woes,
movements, favorite swords,
food allergies.
Yeah, it's my best suit of armor. Yeah, all of that.
Oh man!
And then let's take it to. He goes into the inn.
Yeah, he goes into the inn. By the way, it's just another mention of one of the other sort of ethnicities amongst humans. There's one of the bridge burners called Trots. He's a Barghast. A Barghast are a sort of savage tribe. So and they also, like, some of their lands have been conquered by the Empire at times. Yeah, and they've got this great habit of filing their teeth down into points, and then they sort of always carrying like fetishes like sewed into their hair and clothes and all that kind of thing. I just like the idea of them. They're playing cards, and then there's a few like remarks, and his parents trying. There's this great moment where he kind of wants to get the last word in, and they say, "Oh, you know what happened to our last?" Something to the effect of, "You know what happened to our last captain?" And he says something like, "Do me a favor. If I do get a knife in the back, promise me I'll be that up because I earned it or something."
Yeah.
It's like parting shot, and he walks into the alleyway and immediately gets stabbed.
I thought at the beginning of it, I thought I like this Perrin guy. I thought he might be someone I could root for in this series.
He had protagonist energy for sure.
Yeah.
So much for that idea.
Energy, yeah. And then the next minute is like snack.
Yeah.
Deceased.
And that as he's sort of blacking out, he hears the sound of a coin skittering along the cobblestone.
But then it's those two guys. I mean, who stabbed him though? Was it?
Well,
Sorry?
he talks about a girl's voice as his killer, so I think it's intimated that Sorry is the one who's stuck a knife in him.
And then Hound 1 and Hound 2 rock up, and then they're like, okay, it's those two again.
And I mean, if you think about it, he's been sent there by the adjunct on the trail of Sorry. That starts out where they're trying to go track her, and I've sent him across the sea to go find her. He's done nothing. He walks in, he tries to sort of ingratiate himself with the bridge burners, walks out, and one of them just knifes him in an alleyway. Does have a bit of a Ned Stark vibe to it.
Yeah, no, it does. But no, I haven't read chapter 4 yet, so
yeah.
I mean, don't spoil it for me if he does die or whatever. I don't know.
No,
but it was at the end of the scene when I looked back over the entire chapter that I realized, okay, this is definitely this is the pawns being moved around the board. Someone's orchestra. Because I mean, why would the Hounds just rock up out of nowhere to take this dude out and then still gloat about it? I mean, this isn't just a random insubordination. I mean, this is like a planned assassination.
Yeah,
and gone to
I agree.
lengths. Well, that was it for me. I enjoyed that.
Well, and also, the coin is now the symbol of the god upon. The coin sort of skittering across sort of the sense of the gods getting involved in what's going on down below, kind of directly intervening. And it also, I mean, it just calls back completely your favorite line from the prologue.
I love
live
it.
a life unnoticed by the gods. Sorry, didn't do that right.
Yeah. And he was warned, dude, from like page one. He was warned.
Don't get involved.
Don't be involved. Don't be a soldier. And
live a quiet life.
Yeah.
And the irony is, he's one of the few that probably could have.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly, because he came from wealth and money and horse farms and all this kind of stuff.
These delusions of, grandeur.
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's it.
Hey.
Gil, can you hear us, bud?
I can hear, and I'm not sure how good my line is, but
We can hear you,
just in thinking about that whole situation, it's so weird to me that that they would build him up so much and set him up for like he's going to be an important character in the rest of the book, and then take him out, and because so far he's done nothing. He's done absolutely nothing, right? And so you have to imagine that at least his ghost continues. Like something must come up to explain why it was that he was taken out. And so that it almost turns it into a bit of a, not quite a whodunit, right? But like a why done it. It's like that sets up the sort of motivations for the next few chapters.
That's for me what these two chapters have done more than anything else is set up this kind of this sort of web that sits behind the actual action, and who trying to work out who's pulling the strings, who has what agenda. I mean, the why of it, as you say. And it creates a sort of very unsettling feeling, as opposed to here's a story about an army invading a city. Well, now you know that this army's doing this, but within this army, there's all these insecurities and suspicion.
And it's not just the army either. I mean, it's even within the majors. Like no one trusts anyone. Within their own circle as well. But then who knows? Maybe this dude does a Rob Stark and pops back in chapter 4. I don't know because I haven't read.
Rob Stark pops back in chapter 4.
No, I'm just saying.
Spoilers for Game of Thrones fans out there. Rob Stark's coming back.
If you didn't know that by now, I'm sorry. It's only been 20 years ago?
Yeah, absolutely. A spoiler would be George has just finished the latest book.
He hasn't even finished chapter 1 yet, bro.
Right, yeah, probably not the forum to slag off George R.R. Martin.
Maybe it is. I mean, this
read
is
the room, guys.
This is the Malazan series.
I have seen a lot of people saying when the question was posed, why did you start reading Malazan? They said because I heard it was finished.
Oh,
smack.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a lot of Game of Thrones readers have come in to read Malazan.
I don't know. I mean, maybe
because it's chalk and cheese, dude.
Yeah, it's very different.
I mean, I know Game of Thrones is meaty. There's lots of characters and there's lots of interactions, but it's not even remotely close to the in-depth experience you get from this book.
I heard a figure of just under 600 named characters in the Malazan Book of the Fallen.
Fucking hell.
That's just chapter 1.
Yeah.
I think that's the first swear word as well.
You can beep that out in editing. Yeah, no,
3 episodes, just
600, eh?
Yeah.
Wow.
I've heard that. I don't know if that's true, but you
Dude,
can
I
count
can barely remember my kids'
like
names. I don't even know how I'm going to remember all of these.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
But anyway, guys, anything else you feel like you want to add regarding chapter 3? Favorite lines, favorite character, interesting stuff that's something that leapt out at you.
Just Perrin. I thought he was going to be great. He wasn't so great.
Nice while he lasted.
Yeah, but there's lots of other characters.
600 apparently.
599 to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, amazing.
It's not called the Malazan Book of the Standing, eh?